I was talking with Gary before you all came on. He was the first on, and I violated my cardinal rule of interviewing, which is I started to talk about, things that I was going to ask him about here. So I'll do my best to make it seem like the first time, Gary. But uh, I wasn't going to see streamed. Well, first of all, I'm sorry, I'm going to put it back in gallery view so I can see you all. Just a show of hands, who has seen Eno in the past, whether live or streamed? So that looks like about not even half, but that's fine because I wasn't going to see streamed. I didn't, the times were bad for me. And then yesterday, it turns out it was at 2 p.m. Eastern time. And I looked at my endless to-do list and I said, there's just no way. But then I was working in this cafe and it was getting to like 5 of 2. And it was like I could not stop my hands from like they took on a life of its own. And I signed up for it. And I am so glad I did because I've seen it twice before in theaters. And I truly think it's my favorite documentary of recent years. I mean, and I think it's my now top 3 favorite documentaries because I've seen 3 versions of it. I mean, as you know, and is famously known, Eno uses generative programming, not necessarily AI, I think human programming to create different versions of the film every time you see it. So it's one thing to do that in theaters where they had, kind of hands-on control, but now they've figured out a way to stream it. And someday maybe they'll be able to figure out a way to get it on platforms like Netflix or Apple or whatever. I think they're all clamoring for it, but they haven't quite figured out how to do it. But an interesting thing happened yesterday when I was watching it streamed. And the big difference was in the theater, like Eno is just like a genius talking about art and creativity and everything he says is like a nugget. But it goes by so quickly, it's hard to take it all in. And yesterday's streaming, I actually could sit with a notebook and like take down notes, which was great. I mean, it still goes by so fast, unlike, a normal streamed film, you can't stop and start it. So, if you're slow taking notes, you've missed 3 things. But he's so interesting, on the subject of art and creativity, as
Yeah.
is Gary. And, Gary's come on these things and, it's endlessly a conversation about the technology behind Eno. And I'd like to discuss that. In fact, for those of you who've seen the films and have questions about that, I'd kind of like to save that for when you ask questions, if you want. But, inspired by Eno, I'd kind of like to get to Gary's artistic thoughts, creative process a bit more, and
Sure.
focus on that. With your kind permission, Gary, because I
Yeah, no,
did not
love
prepare
to,
you for
love to,
this.
love to. Well,
Uh, yeah.
yeah, has just always been sort of a creative hero of mine. Um, yes, I liked all the music and I was like exposed to, Roxy Music and his solo records and all the stuff that he's done with like Bowie and David Byrne and others. But also that he was kind of this like, I don't know, before there was Rick Rubin, there was like Brian Eno. A lot of people who don't know who Eno is, and I describe what he does, and they're like, "Oh, so he's kind of like Rick Rubin." And it's like, no, 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 no. But it just that he's always been just somebody that I thought was super interesting and always kind of pushing the limits of technology and creativity. I mean, he was kind of inventing generative music software in the 90s. Like as soon as there were kind of, PCs and music programs, he was like developing all these really early generative systems. So he's kind of been doing this for decades now. But he's always kind of, I don't know, been sort of mysterious or whatever. And yeah, I just all of the films that I've done or that I've produced, I think have been somehow about the creative process, whether it's design or music or architecture or whatever. So I really wanted to make a really just a film about creativity with Brian as the like we get to use 50 years of his, output as the examples of it. But all the conversations around that film were about creativity. They were just every single interview was just about process, and they would spin off, and he would talk about Bowie or whatever, but they were always just about creativity because I don't know, it's just something that I'm fascinated by. Like I always want to learn from all these people, like get something from them, and if you watch Eno, I think pretty much every single scene that could appear in the film or every piece of footage almost there's some like creative takeaway from it. There's something you can learn if you are a creative person. That's why I think it resonates with filmmakers and musicians and artists because he's just fucking great at it. And his whole thing is when he got brought in by these bands and, he was this sort of creative sounding board. He was the one who's like disrupting what they normally did and say, no, pick these cards up and, do what the card says, or just trying to kind of like change their, whatever their habits were, their creative habits of making music or writing songs or whatever. So yeah, I just felt if I could make a film like that, it would be great. But then he turned me down when I initially, approached him about making a documentary, just because he didn't like the form of the bio documentary or music documentaries being this like, very subjective, very much the filmmaker's version of this other person's story. And that was kind of around the same time that I started, kind of thinking about what could we do with generative technology and film, and is there a way to like make a movie that could, tell more than one story? And that was the beginning of the the process with the,
I'm glad you mentioned it because I caught myself about to ask about reapproaching him,
oh yeah.
repitching him once you'd worked that out with Brendan Shaws. But I'm stopping because you mentioned all these takeaways that you get from Eno. So I want to talk about some of those and follow up on them. One that struck me really impactfully because I found myself practicing it this morning was he talked about he used to have breakfast time where he would like immediately, be reading newspapers, checking his email, thinking through his to-do list, and he just at some point put a stop to that and used the morning for creativity. And then he even mentions that he's really hungry. What time is it? It was almost noon. Um, so what's your morning routine? Do you get up at when's your best time to work? What do you do? Do you like immediately put on a cup of coffee and scroll the news, or you
So I think it's interesting, yeah, he still does not have breakfast. He doesn't eat. He maybe has like tea and then just doesn't pick up the phone, doesn't do anything, just kind of sits and thinks and like, that's like his is the past few years his routine to be more creative. And just because like his whole theory is like you can't do input and output at the same time. Like if it's all in food and news and emails and all this stuff, you can't kind of, your brain can't kind of think and kind of produce or be creative. And so I totally agree, but it's really hard. Like I tried to do it for a while, just not pick up the phone, and I still, I don't know. I try to, but I can't, I can't do it. Like there's so much. I have so many things that are, you know, coming in from all over the world, and I'm just like, oh, what happened to the stream that was overnight or whatever? It's just like I'm constantly kind of, monitoring things. So I wish I could be as disciplined as to not have breakfast, which yeah, I also can't do. I need to eat in the morning and drink coffee.
Your coffee. How many cups of coffee a day, Gary? I just read in the Times, 2 to 3 cups of caffeinated coffee will keep off dementia, which I thought was
Really?
a very good thing.
Wow. No,
Yeah.
I'm 1 cup of coffee in the morning, like a good sized cup, and then maybe like I don't know, like a Diet Coke or maybe a little bit of coffee in the afternoon sometimes. So
Do you have any routines though? Do you journal? Do you meditate? Do you do any of that stuff?
I don't. I will pick up a guitar every now and then just to kind of like get my mind into that a different place. Um, but mostly it's like listening to music is just the biggest, I think the biggest thing for me. Put on music, put on a record, and just kind of let that be some sort of a space, create a space. Somehow, I think most of the ideas that I have are somehow because of music or listening to music. Like I get a lot of visual ideas when I listen to music.
Eno
I,
music?
pardon?
Eno music? The ambient, any ambient?
Sure, everything or jazz or electronic music or just a wide range of records, I think. But yeah, no, music to me, like I mean, I came up in the music business. All my friends were in bands, and I was managing them, and I worked at record labels, and music was, my life for a while. So even when I eventually got involved in film, it was still about music for me, and music was also kind of the model that I don't know, operated in film. Like I didn't have any idea how to make films or distribute films, but I knew how to make music and distribute music. So I kind of brought those things over. So, and music is still a huge part of the films. I have films that I couldn't even um, figure out how to edit the film. Like I would just shoot, 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 and I had no idea what I was going to do with the edit. But then I got like a couple pieces of music, and suddenly the whole thing was like, oh, I can see it. I can see the whole thing threaded through. And that was actually how I met Brian Eno. He did the music for this film that I did about Dieter Rams, who's a German designer. And I had just been shooting for like a year and a half, and I had not touched the footage, and got him to send me a few tracks of things that he had lying around, or he did a few things like based on what I had told him the film was about. And the minute I got the music, I just was like, oh, I can see the whole film. This is easy. And then it was just like putting it together. So music is a huge part of my process for sure. Um, yeah, I don't know. I don't have any tips. I write down a ton of ideas. I jot down ideas all the time.
You
That's what
do
I'm really
handwriting or on a
handwriting or just
uh,
lists in my phone.
keyboard?
Like that's when I'm reaching for the phone in the middle of the night or in the morning when I wake up. A lot of times it's just to scribble down like another idea.
It's so
Because I have,
interesting you say that because one of the scenes I have to refer to the specific scene because they don't show up in every version, obviously. But the one I saw yesterday had Eno talking about he doesn't read or write music. He keeps a little mobile recorder with him all the time, and he kind of just hums a melody or something into the recorder, or he won't
yeah.
keep it in mind. That's not something you do then? That's your version of talking to himself.
Yeah. No, I don't know. I just have a lot of ideas about things, movies, companies, just I don't know, stuff. And
Do
um
they
and
do they
and
come at any time? I mean, they'll come randomly.
yeah.
You never know
There
when.
there are a lot. This is really getting kind of
Into the weeds, into the weeds
yeah, it's
here.
getting into the weeds here. I have a lot of like that when you first wake up and you're kind of still asleep and you're semi dreaming, but you're not, you're drifting in and out. I have a lot of ideas in that time. And again, I'm not really sure why. Or things that I straight up dream, and then I wake up and I'm like, God, I dreamt this thing, and I'll just write it down. You know.
If you,
Actually, this is the thing. I mean, Jessica, I think we're going to talk to her later.
hmm,
Tell Me Something, the documentary book, that was actually started as a dream idea.
there
Like
it is.
I had a dream that I was in a bookstore and I looked down on the table and there was a book of creative advice from documentary filmmakers. And I told Jess and she was like, that's let's do this. This is a great idea. And then she went and talked to all those filmmakers and did it.
We're saving Jessica to come on and give us advice because we all need advice.
Yeah.
I put up a Substack post yesterday about um, I came to Gary and Jessica for some advice on a project that I had last week, and um, it worked out that you were doing the streaming. I thought, oh, perfect timing for you to come on and all that. So it happened very quickly, this thing. But I do a weekly Substack post, and I uh, I still hadn't written it as of like yesterday morning or 2 days ago, and I remembered Jessica's book because I was one of the filmmakers interviewed, and I hadn't, kind of read it. I glanced at it at the time, but I didn't really read it. It's an amazing book, Jessica, is like a fantastic book. And so I pulled off a bunch of quotes from it, and it was great, advice to documentary filmmakers. So, Jessica, can you put a link to it? I know I think it's not available anymore in book form, but it is
Print.
online,
Yeah,
an online
it's out
version.
of print now. But yeah, I'll send you I'll put a link in the chat. I was just also looking at it again this morning, and everyone looks so young in it. It's like I think both Doug and Gary ha don't have gray hair in their photographs.
That's impossible.
No, but I am still drinking coffee. You got me like the
Yes.
photographer got me like mid sip. Yeah. Well, now that we have you on camera, stay up because, for you, Jessica is both Gary's wife, but also producing partner on Eno and a terrific filmmaker in her own right, Mavis, and a bunch of other really great documentaries. So let me ask you some questions as well, Jessica, for not just on advice, we'll get to advice, but um, it's always interesting to me, filmmaking couples, and how they work together, and what their process is and how they separate the personal from the professional. So, where were you part of the Eno project from the very beginning? Because you haven't produced all of Gary's work. I think you did one other film that you produced of his, or was this the first?
Um, so no, this wasn't the first, and the sort of benefits of being in a creative couple, I'll say, is that you have a constant sounding board. You have a person in your life who is always around to sort of have these conversations and sort of see where these ideas can go. And I mean, in Gary's case, like he has like an idea second, and so sometimes it's about like maybe that's not the one to follow today, like there's a real benefit to that. It makes, for kind of a wonderfully rich existence, honestly, even when it's super, super tough. But essentially, since we've been together, which is about 17 years, right? Is that right? 17 or 18 years. We've always worked on each other's projects in some capacity or not. And that's kind of inherent anyway, because, you're in the same house as someone. So it's hard not to sort of not to engage. And actually, I've been thinking about this idea a lot lately, and I just looked at Chris and Penny's advice in the book, and it like almost made me burst into tears. I'm just gonna read it. Is that okay?
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, so Chris and Penny like have this adorable photo that Gary took, and they say, work with someone you love, love what you do, listen to your partner, but stay true to the voice inside. It's not always easy, but why easy? Take a deep breath. If you're lucky, it will be the best adventure of your life, and you'll share it with your love. We got a dog, a big black dog. Gary and I got a little black dog, but there's something about that, and as like as a sort of collective community and as an industry have been really talking about how sustainability and the marketplace and how do we make money doing what we do without marrying rich, which was Frederick Wiseman's one line advice, and which I still truly believe is a good idea. Marry a lawyer. But in thinking about sustainability and how we can continue doing the work that we love without having someone that you do it with who you share expenses with, I mean, at a very crude level, is actually a wonderful idea. And it's certainly difficult. It's hard to have a family. There's all kinds of gender stuff that happens, which is the reality of that, especially if you have kids. But honestly, like the benefits kind of outweigh the collaborative and creative benefits really can outweigh the challenges. And especially now, like we've been doing this together for a really long time, and especially now, it's kind of like we can still do it, we and a lot of we know a lot of friends who, are therapists now or have gone on to find other careers because it's not something they could stick with. So I feel very lucky in that regard, and to sort of see that, in this Tell Me Something is we put it out in 2013. So that kind of the advice in here feels very evergreen in a way that, again, haven't really looked at it in a while either. And it feels very evergreen. It feels like important now as it was then.
I'm just putting in the chat a link to my Substack post where I quoted liberally from some of the filmmakers,
Yes.
ending, of course, with the great Frederick Wiseman's advice: marry somebody rich.
R.I.P.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Uh,
we were just talking, Jess and I, before the call, like about maybe just making the book into like a mini site or something like that, just so all that stuff is accessible, because it's kind of the purpose of the book is to spread those ideas and that creative advice. So it kind of seems a shame that it's out of print. So we're gonna do something online with it.
it's great. Like I said, I hadn't read it, and first of all, it's just like a great read. It's really interesting, and there's some really common themes that emerge. Like I know I talked about, for every piece of advice you get, the opposite is probably true. Like take, the truism, look before you leap. But if you look too carefully at what's involved in documentary filmmaking, the years, the time, the money, effort, you probably wouldn't make the film. So sometimes leaping before you look is the way to go. Many others spoke about ignoring advice. You'll get all sorts of advice and just like, what do they know? They'll tell all the reasons, all the warnings, you just got to follow your own path. So I'm curious, what is, ignoring other people's advice? Let's go to both of you. What's your, like, what would your advice be if I came to you and said, what advice do you have for documentary filmmakers? First, Jessica, because you wrote the book. I mean, you edited the book.
Um, I mean, why don't we sort of position this in sort of an Eno perspective?
Okay.
Because the advice changes every single time, with every project, right? Like some projects require some advice and some other times. And essentially, what happened with Eno was that, from a distribution and exhibition standpoint, was that everyone just kept like saying, like, you guys are like crazy. Like, what are you trying to do? Like, launching a film in theaters that changes every time. Like everyone just kind of kept saying, no, essentially.
Well,
And
yeah, I mean, I can
go
just to
ahead.
add to that. Like, it's hard for, and I totally get it. It's hard for people sometimes to be able to understand something that they've never experienced before, that there's no precedent for. So as much as I talk to people, even Brian, talking to him about what I envisioned the film to be, it wasn't until people saw it that they could actually understand it. Because there's just no, it's really hard. It's a hard thing to describe because it hadn't been done before. So a lot of that is just kind of like I have the vision of it. I know we can do it. I had an incredible team of editors and programmers and just everybody who was involved in the film. So it was just about like if we can just get to Sundance and like make it, show it on, get people in a room and they can experience it, then they'll get it. And then, but even then, it's funny because people are like, "Wow, this is amazing! I get it." But how did it could only work with Brian Eno, right? I don't see how it could work with any other thing. And then I'm just like, okay, well, now we got to make other films and show people kind of all the possibilities of the approach. So it's yeah, it's not about people not. Again, I get it when people don't understand the idea, like, and I think that's a lot of times when we have a vision for a film and you're trying to describe it to people, and however you describe it, they're still not seeing what you're kind of seeing inside your head of that what that film is going to be. I'm always I'm always the audience for my films, really. Like I'm really making them for me just because they in my case they don't exist outside. They're things I want to watch that don't exist. So I'm just trying to make those films the things that like I'm obsessed with, and then just count on the fact that there are other people out there who are also obsessed with the same things that I am, and then it's really just about connecting with those people.
Well, also, people in the industry are driven by money and how well the film will do that way. And you could have made a lot more money, I suspect, by making a big sale to a streamer or a distributor.
Maybe, I don't know. I would maybe disagree with that
Okay,
because even if we would have had made it would have been a normal movie and we would have sold it for a few million to Netflix or whatever at Sundance, which that could have happened. We would have immediately, it would have been done. It would have just, gone on Netflix and it would have been a in perpetuity,
right.
their property. And yes, a lot of people would see it and everybody would kind of get a check, but there's no equity, there's no long-term equity in that. And for this one, there was so much stuff we wanted to do. Sundance was like the beginning of the film's life and not the end point. So, we wanted to go and screen it and do different versions. And Netflix was like, we can't do other versions. Just like give us a director's cut. And we
This is a perfect illustration, Gary, of a big point that comes out of Jessica's book, which is you want to follow your passion, and what you want from it, as opposed to what others are telling you to do or what the culture seems to
Mhm.
want. You have to follow your own path. Um, I mean,
yeah.
that
But
seems
that
to
can
be
be really scary if you're new and young and you haven't necessarily found your voice yet. And that also is really scary in an industry where it's changing all the time. So I actually think that there's that collaboration and sort of the collectivism, like the D word, like using spaces like this to, check yourself, to check your thing. Like it's very important to surround yourself with people who are smarter than you. That's what I like to do. Hire smarter, hire people who have done it maybe in a different way than you. There's a way in which you can, I mean, one of Marshall Curry's advice is like, like keep going, do stay on your path. But if like someone tells you that you're drunk, sit down. like there's a real give and take. And it's hard when you're in the project to see the sort of forest for the trees. And so I think collaboration and finding people that are great collaborators and that you stick with for a very long time. Like Maya Tippett, who is an editor on Eno, was the editor of Skate Dreams, which was my last feature film, and the associate editor on Mavis, which was my first feature. And then she also was our like technical. I don't even remember what we called her, but when Gary and I did like VR documentary for a hot minute there, when that was really fun thing to try out, like she basically reinvented how you could edit documentary within VR. And she is so important to our collaboration that we kind of just keep sticking around. But that's sort of my point is that you need people who can call you out on your bullshit at the same time also be like, no, like keep trying that path. Keep going down there.
Mm. So Gary, I'll go back to you with the your best advice on this day. Understanding that tomorrow it may be a different thing of advice, another version of advice. But if Jess was coming to you for your page, because you were in the book, of course, but and you talked a lot about the importance of owning your own material and building your audience.
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
still
yeah.
your advice 13 years later?
I think so. Because I mean, we're in a moment where, you know, I just would, we're reading all the Paramount, Warner Brothers stuff and
Mhm.
everything. I don't even feel like I'm in that same industry as that stuff is happening because I just feel like what I do and sometimes what we do as independent documentary filmmakers is not that. It's not those massive the big streamers and the big studios just don't care about it just seems like have no interest in like serious documentary filmmaking. It's not what they're about, and it seems like with that merger and others that is only becoming more and more the case. So I kind of don't think about them, that would may as well just be like we're talking about like tobacco companies or something to me. Like I don't even think it's the same space at all from what I do. Um, and that's always kind of again been the case. Like I feel like I've come at film from a different point of view and just like the DIY, indie music kind of methodology. So yeah, no, that's still, it's so much harder to do it yourself. It's so much harder. It's much easier to get somebody to give you a big check before you've made the film or during or after you've made the film. Um, but how many great filmmakers do we know who Penn Baker is a good example, who, didn't own any of those, didn't have the rights to any of those big films. They were all commissions. They were all other people paying for them and keeping them, keeping the rights to them. So I feel like controlling your catalog and controlling your destiny, again, it's a lot harder, but there's other benefits to having that stuff. Every new tech platform that comes out, every new thing, every licensing opportunity, it's like, we still have retain all the rights to all our films, so we can kind of just keep kind of putting, oh, there's, new educational distributors in Europe or whatever. There's all these different opportunities that kind of keep happening as the technology is changing, and we have a catalog of films that thankfully there's still a demand for people to watch, so we get to keep doing that. And that's a really, it's helpful to have that kind of like some base level of like passive income happening from that catalog of films. And I just don't think I could make the films that I want to make. Nobody would, if I walked in and tried to pitch investors on making a feature-length film about a font, they would have thought I was insane. So I feel like,
And yet,
And yet, exactly. And yet it's
And
still
you
out
built your career on it. Who knew?
Yeah, but again, that wasn't a, again, that was just something I wanted to watch a movie about fonts, and I was like, where is couldn't find it on Netflix,
Yeah.
basically, before Netflix was existed. But it's been amazing to see streaming change and to see how that has impacted what we do in the past 20 years. And completely just the devaluation of, of digital content with these platforms, music and film and everything else. So it's like, yeah, it is kind of it's depressing, but every time I get into a room with a couple hundred people who are psyched to see a movie and leave inspired from it, it's that's what it's about. It's not about Paramount and Warner Brothers. That is a totally, serious and fucked up development. But I don't even think I try not to think about it because it's not I'm so far away from that it's just like
Yeah, I want to get back to this because it's an important conversation about, sustainability and ownership and Helvetica is the perfect example of a film where you just followed your intuition. Like you said, I made the film I wanted to see, and you just counted on the fact that if you made it really good, that others out there would, and you found this, unexpected, I think, unexpectedly large audience,
oh,
and
I knew it was a huge audience. Like, like I
you
knew
found
there was
well,
millions
we
of
know there's a huge
designers out
audience for
there.
our films. We just don't know how to get to them necessarily. And that's
Yeah, but
that's that's a topic of itself. But while
yeah.
Justice here, with enlightening speed, I want to go back to something, which is, how you guys work together. Do you guys put like limits on things like, after 8 p.m. we're not going to talk film or anything, or it's just like,
We've tried that in the past. It doesn't work. It's impossible.
No, we prioritize fun. That's our job. Like basically, we try when we are doing things together that don't have anything to do with our job, everything is fine.
what do you do? What do you do to
Yeah.
unwind? I mean, do you like
Oh, I
watching?
know. We went and saw Margot Price play it in Woodstock last night. We go to shows, go to music shows a
We go to
lot.
shows mostly.
Yeah, yeah.
I mean, how old is your kid now? 15, 14, something
14.
like that?
Yeah, 14, yeah.
Okay. What do how did you work in raising a child and divvying up filmmaking responsibilities?
This is a
I have no
very
idea.
controversial topic,
Just,
Scott. This is where it comes. It's
Yeah.
hard. I mean, again, especially two filmmakers. It's like somebody's on, the peaks and valleys of like, are you making something? Oh, now we're showing it. Are we spending money? Then we're making money. Ideally, those things, I mean, they kind of have to like kind of coexist on separate things. We can't both be spending money without any money coming in. So, but then it's like who's at home? Who's at home when I'm out doing 100 shows with or Jess is out, shooting Skate Dreams. So there is a lot of, I think, of negotiation of like time. It is a lot about time.
Yeah, it's
And
it's it's also about making like it's our lifestyle now. Like I think I've threatened many times over the years to go get a real job and have tried even like sign me up for corporate America and give me a health insurance. Like I'm ready to go. Um, and it's just not gonna happen at this point, it's not gonna happen anymore. So now it's a lifestyle. Like, by the time our kid was 2 years old, she had traveled all over the world because she came with us. We just put her on our backs and took her to all the screenings because that's how we could make money. And the thing that I think is important to note here, besides all the sort of like, typical gender things, which are real and should not be discounted, we learned how to release our own work. in a very real way. And so the income that it requires to run those campaigns is like in the house, like like the I do that work now, like I'm the distributor of our films, and I don't make films really anymore. I haven't made a film in 5 years probably, because it's just not, it's we're releasing movies, and now it's gotten to the point where nobody's movies are getting bought, so I'm releasing everybody else's movies too. And so it's become kind of this like interesting, like everybody else caught up with us in this funny way. And I'm grateful to have been doing it, with Gary's stuff for so long, because now it's actually something we can share and help with all these other filmmakers. Because it changes all the time. Like releasing a documentary has some foundational ideas, but it doesn't follow one particular path. And since we've done it 9 times now or something, it it's actually something we can share and monetize outside of our house.
Yeah,
So that's been really interesting to watch over the last 2 years.
I
And
can see
also for
everybody.
those,
I can
oh, I
see
was gonna
everybody
say for
here
those.
taking. Oh, sorry, Gary.
Oh, no. As for those who don't know, Jessica and her team is behind the Cutting Through Rocks Oscar campaign and theatrical distribution of that film, which is another, Sundance award-winning, incredible movie that has not been able to get a, traditional distribution deal. So,
Yeah.
um, just more and more the case.
Are you taking your, I see everybody noting that you are taking on distribution role here.
Yeah.
The
You want to
what?
put out your email address and
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I
chat?
mean, yes, absolutely. Like we're open to all of these conversations. I think that what I want filmmakers to take away from this is that, there is hope in this, and that, here's a piece of advice, contemporary advice for today. Before you're finished making your film, be thinking about your audience first. That should, like, who is going to pay what's our line, Gary? Who's going to pay $25 and stand in the rain to see your film? Who are those people and how can you find them? So that has to be thought about. And I think even more practically, how are we looking at budgets and how are we looking at granting and allowing distribution and the sort of exhibition of a film become part of those larger budgets? That's going to be a huge that's going to be a huge shift, and we can see it sort of in a tiny way. Like there's some money from distribution advocates, what Amy Hobby's doing, and some other places to sort of get our films out there. But if you're trying to like rise out of the sort of like page of thumbnails that is eventually where the streaming platforms are, you need to be able to find your audience and have them advocate for you online.
Great. I'm sure when we open this up to questions in a few minutes, and by the way, folks, if you have a question to ask, use the raised hand function. You can start doing it now, and I will call on you in the order that I see the raised hands. Oh my God, they all went up with lightning speed. So I will save the follow-up. I mean, see how quickly we gravitate to the industry and
Yeah.
distribution and stuff. I mean,
Hey,
I'm doing my best to talk about the creative process, and
it's,
yet
it's
it always
what's
comes back to
it's
that.
what's happening. It's
So I
everybody's
want to, in my
expecting it.
remaining time, unless we run out of questions from them, get back to my theme of the day. Uh, Eno talks so much about taking the time to think,
Yeah.
and so how do you guys living such busy lives, multitasking, working on your own projects, each other's projects, and different roles with like a million things going on? What do you do to get alone time to think?
Hmm. We're lucky to live up here in the Hudson Valley, so close to the Catskills, close to the Hudson River. I go on drives in the mountains and in the mountain roads. at high speeds. That's my that's my way of getting. I just have an old car, and I get out there, and that's mine. There's no radio in it. It's just about the wind and the machine, and I just go through the Catskills and drive on, and with friends too, who are also drivers. So that's one way that I sort of get that space. It's nice to think when you're driving alone. I don't know. I used to do it when I was younger, when I grew up in California, driving through the desert, that's one way for me. And like I said, the music is always the thing. I don't know. I'm one of those people. I just like to sit and think. Sometimes Jess is like, well, "What are you doing?" I'm just like, "I'm just thinking. I'm working. I'm just thinking. I'm not doing anything, but I just kind of think through. One of the reasons that I love documentary film is maybe it's just my personality, but it's I love kind of solving the puzzle, like putting the pieces together and thinking through, like how could this work, and kind of designing it. And films are a design challenge. It's a long form communication design. And it's always about like, oh, how would it work if this scene was over here? And I love that stuff. I love to kind of put the pieces together of it. And I think I do that with films, but I also do it just with ideas in general. Like, God, what if this thing was like this? And I just think about those things a lot. There's a lot of internal, um, you know, I don't know, brainstorming, but imagining things that I like, imagining things that don't exist,
Yeah.
and trying, and then being like, wow, could I get there? And that's what Eno was. It was imagining it wasn't about developing software for software's sake. Software is a means to an end. I had a creative idea that was like, God, could we make a film that could change? And then let's invent the technology to get there to do the thing. That was what it was about.
Sure. Jess, I suspect you don't do high-speed driving. What do you do to get
You'd be
away?
surprised, actually. I do like music though. I play it at like 11 and hit the throughway. I think physical activity is extremely important and it's very important to me. So I try as much as I can to spend a little bit of time doing something extremely physical. When we moved up here, we got a dog. So we have amazing hikes and the dog and I do a lot of that stuff. That's where I sort of center. And it's essential. And frankly, sometimes it's essential to get out of the house and get away from these people who are doing all of their important thinking and making sure that you are separate in that experience, you know? So that's my loophole. I can't meditate. I just can't sit still that way. So it becomes that kind of meditation.
Yeah. I want to get I didn't want to go by without talking about Brian Eno's oblique strategies, which I
Yeah.
I love, and I'm putting a link in the chat to where you can see them online. I noted a few of them yesterday. Gary, you might want to add some of your favorites, but mine were like things like they're just sayings or that that help artists come to creative breakthroughs when they're stuck,
Yeah.
or as a means to trigger an idea. It's a stack of cards, and you pick them up, and there's an idea on it. And some examples: just carry on, emphasize the flaws, don't be frightened to display your talents, only one element of each kind, give the game away, trust in the you of now, use unqualified people. I kind of like that one. Um, anyway, so Gary and Jess, what would be your oblique strategies if you had, if you were putting out a card or two or three,
Oh, man.
yeah,
That's a tough one.
I
Yeah.
know. I
I
saved
mean,
it.
the masters took care of this one. The experts have a box that we use all the time. So, um,
Yeah. it's funny because it's not what you would think it would be, and that's the I think the beauty of Brian's set is it's not the whole point of it is to not ask yourself kind of a normal question or a normal prompt. It's got to be something that throws you off like that.
Right.
Use unqualified people. You're just like, what? That's the last thing I would do. It's got to be something that really diverts you or really disrupts your process. So
Well,
that's
I
why,
guess what's an example of like outside the box thinking that has helped you or,
yeah,
Uh,
yeah.
um, d decline the offer.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know if this fits on a card, but I think
That's
we're
good, Eric.
defined by
Yeah.
what we say no to, you know. We have
Mhm.
Yeah.
so many things that are thrown at us or ideas or whatever it is, and we have to say no so many more times than you say yes. So it's really the no's that are, you know, and a lot of times I think that wow, this is a great thing and I would love to do it, but just like I don't. I just got to say no to more things.
Yep.
And you think like, especially, I don't know, sometimes you're like, oh God, I need the money. I could do this commercial thing. It's going to be only 2 months, whatever it is. The brain power and creative juice that you're going to have to put into something like that is just never worth it. It's never worth it. It's always better to like put it into your own projects or put it into thinking about new things than it is to I think to give it to a company or whatever to do something for just to get a check.
Yeah.
It's weirdly counterintuitive that you end up making more by doing it, spending the time thinking of your own and working on your own projects than going and doing like a turn down thing that was like a year-long project. And it's like there's no way I'm going to spend a year of my life thinking about your thing, even whatever it is. It's just like especially if I'm not going to own it at the end. It just doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But
Just say no is a good one.
just say no. Well, don't be afraid to say no. It's okay to say
Well,
no.
yeah. I mean,
It's okay to, yeah.
it's liberating, you know. I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
we're
yeah.
both so nice and polite. We want to be helpful, and people come all the time, you know, and
Totally.
guarding our time is so incredibly important.
Yeah.
Uh, so,
This is again, people I know lots of you have done commercials and like I don't do them just because the amount of time and effort you put into even the pitch. Like I remember I did something for Apple and we spent a month on the deck and like getting every like mood things and all this stuff. We spent so much time. And it was down to three. It was one of these. There was three people, and they chose one of the other people. I'm just like, it's such a it's such wasted effort that I just say no. The things that you think, again, this is my opinion. The things that you think would be like, oh wow, I could make money on that and I could do it. In the long run, it's actually like a negative to do things. So where you're putting your creativity into something, even yes, we got to pay the rent and everything else like that, but try to come up with other ways to do it on your own creatively versus just spending your time putting we don't time is our most valuable asset. We none of us have a lot of it, and I would rather like you know struggle a little bit and just do things that I want to put my creativity into my own projects than get it subverted into something that maybe I don't have control over or it's not really, yeah.
lots of hands up, so we will go,
Okay.
folks. You can
Thank you.
ask.
Thank
This is
you.
the time to
Ask
ask
us.
your Eno questions if you want, or as you can see, no question is too personal for Gary.
Apparently, it's
Rachel, you're up
been
first.
hijacked.
Rachel, yeah.
Hi, great to meet you. First, I just want to say that my dad, who was an art director, graphic designer from the 50s to the 90s, was one of the people who approved of your film, and he didn't
Oh,
approve of many things. So, right.
amazing. That's
He,
great.
yeah, someone who went to art school, he approved of like three things I did ever. So,
We'll go deeper into that next week at our informal face-to-face, Rachel, if you're
okay.
that's
So,
where we do.
And I've seen, in the theater 4 times.
Wow.
Thank you.
The first, the second was to put me at ease having a career in editing because I was nervous, and then the next 2 times were just because I couldn't help myself. And so look forward to the next ones. Yeah, I'm really interested in hearing more about the distribution advocates you talked about, and then Gary, how you touched on some things brewing in Europe on that front.
So
Uh,
distribution, I'll just quickly handle that one. So there is it's a Substack actually that Amy Hobby, a producer and amazing mentor person, filmmaker, put together, and essentially it's a Substack that kind of promotes the idea that distribution is filmmaking. That's what it essentially boils down to. And they've been able to secure funding for sort of small grants associated with DTA or direct to audience distribution strategies. So you can check them out online. We were able to secure something small for them for our Eno release, and we basically the grant was to do a case study so that we could investigate how we were able to bring a film that is different every time to exhibitors, and like we were very, very transparent with our money, how much we made, how much it costs, where we did it, what the levels of distribution were, and the work that went into that. So you can take a peek at like, I mean, it's super in the weeds, like really granular. So you can take a look at that. It's on their Substack. But they do all kinds of great work, and they also are a great resource for other places that are also kind of thinking about distribution in this new way.
Yeah. Erica put a link to it in the chat.
Okay, thank you.
You're quite welcome. Eric.
Hi, everybody. I want to thank Doug and you and Julie and Erica again for putting together some great programming. Gary, you and I got to talk very briefly in San Francisco 2 years ago when you played at the Palace of Fine Arts.
yeah, year and a half. Yep.
Great event. It got me so excited and inspired, and it made me think about like one, just technically. Um, the way in which you uh, denote the clips, the scenes to the algorithm. Um, I theorized it's in some sort of metadata, and there's some tentpole type of aspects to it. So as a segue wouldn't be three segues in a row. So or four really long pieces. So that,
Yeah.
but I'd also the theoretical part of it was what's really interesting to me. I'm wondering if you thought of William Burroughs' cut up method and the films that he made with Brian Guyan, or even if you thought about, John Cage and Rauschenberg used to talk about how they would try to separate themselves from the art. Like they
Mhm.
felt like the artist was interfering with the arts, hence the Silence 433, Rauschenberg's
Yeah.
white paintings. Um, if you can answer or address any of that, that would be great. I know it's
Yeah.
three questions, kind of.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there was a lot that went into the programming and the conceptualization of the film. At its core, I wanted it to just feel like a normal theatrical documentary, like I would normally make. I just wanted it to have the ability to change. So a lot of the as filmmakers, we get hundreds of hours of footage. You got to cut it down to 90 minutes. And yes, there are a ton of creative decisions that get it down to those 90 minutes. But a lot of times there's like hours of great, great stuff that you're like, God, I wish I could get this in there. And so I wanted an approach for someone as kind of undefinable as Brian, where we could use all that other footage. It just kind of would appear in certain times, and certain times it wouldn't appear. So the challenge was designing a system that kind of knew what all the footage was, both edited scenes and raw footage, to like make cool things and transitions and stuff, and that could construct an arc that felt like there was a progression, regardless of what individual pieces came in. So there is a ton of programming in there that was proprietary. I mean, we made it up. We started in 2019, long before all these AI platforms and everything, and basically put our creative brains into defining the rules around the algorithms of how the system puts together the film each time. So there are part of it was that idea, like how much should recur and how much could change and why should it change. And you need some level of structure if it's going to be what feels like a theatrical documentary. So with our system, it is contextual. It's like it can make the 85-minute theatrical version that we've been showing all over the world and theatrical runs and stuff. But the same system also makes the 24-hour durational thing that we showed for a week at the Venice Biennale that made a 168-hour-long version of the film that wasn't a loop. It just made an original movie for 168 hours. Or the system could also bang out like 1-minute social clips all day long, billions of them. So it's all kind of a system that all that material is in play and just designing the ways that it can kind of recombine and interact. And we wanted it to feel like a cinematic documentary. That's what everyone's seen. So that was a lot of the figuring out what the language of it was, figuring out how random it could be. Luckily, it's about one person, so you can learn the different information about what Brian's career has been, or his ideas, or his strategies, or whatever. You can learn about those things in a lot of different ways, and it doesn't have to be a linear feel. But there is an under structure of like narrative progression in it, and that's something that really that took a long time. And tech stuff like the sound. I mean, it makes a 5/1 dynamic 5/1 mix in real time as it's playing. That was actually harder to do than all the picture stuff. But anyway.
So Gary, if I'm understanding, you can almost think of it as sections, and within the sections, there's all this probability and
You
stuff,
can
but
think of it
then the
as,
sections create kind of an arc of his.
well, you can think about it as thematic grouping, kind of,
Okay.
and like any story has to feel like, I think there's some sort of a progression to it and a kind of payoff. It has bookends too, like there's every iteration of the movie has like enough of Brian's ideas and his what he's about that you can watch it and you can come away with you get that, and then you get all this other stuff that like I don't know, 70% of the film can change every time it shows. So but as long as that 30% is there, you're kind of like, all right, we're gonna get the basics here. It's gonna feel like it's got a start and an end, and then all the other stuff can happen, in between. So
Yeah.
it's so much programming and so much just making it up. We had no idea what we were doing. We were, yes, there's been experimental films and art where, things were non-linear and, but never like a something that felt like a cinematic documentary that told a story, but just told a different story every time.
As somebody there with a kind of artistic bent and business background stuff, did you ever expect yourself to be doing all this programming? I mean, where did you learn the programming?
No, well, I mean, I got a really amazing programmer,
Well, I know Brendan does,
collaborator,
but
Brendan. Yeah,
yeah, so how much
I
you were throwing
know.
ideas out and
I
he's
had I had no
executing.
idea how the coding worked when we started. That was really Brendan's domain. Now I know, at least I can talk about it with him, but it was very much Brendan would make something and I'd be like, great, that's awesome. Could it do this? And then he would make something else and then he would give it to us, and then we would use it in some way that he didn't expect. And we tell him, oh, we used it. Then he was, oh, I'll incorporate that. It was a lot of just experimentation and back and forth. But Yeah,
Hire people
this
that
is
are smarter than you.
well, hire people that don't just like "Oh, I don't know if I can do that, like it's going to be really hard. You got to have people that are excited about the project and are like the discovery. It's all discovery and it's all exploration. So if you're not a discoverer or an explorer, then you can't do it.
I wouldn't say Brendan was an unqualified person,
Oh no, no, for
though.
sure. He's the reason that it goes and all the stuff that we're doing now that's using the software, in other films and in other projects. That's, me and Brendan, and we've got other people that are working with us too. But
Right. Mark, you're up.
Have to take my mic off. Um, First of all, I got to witness it yesterday along with Doug, and I was really busy, and I'm trying to find out. I'm going, oh, maybe I'll get up at 5 o'clock in the morning and watch the LA feed at that time, but I made it at the 11 o'clock, so that was great. But I just want to thank you for making a film of an individual that that I knew about, but I never really followed him, but I knew of his brilliance. But what a beautiful man he is. And thank you for sharing this film. It was like going to a creative church, and I just felt so blessed to be able to witness this man of so much talent. And you were saying about, or Doug was saying about Ruben, or someone about Ruben. And no, no, no. This guy, I'm sure Ruben studied
oh,
him. I'm sure, because this guy creatively can make this stuff brilliantly, with all this technology. And but his nature, the thing about that I walked away from him, is the nature that he brings into his soul and what he looks at and feels, and then comes back to his craft and tries to duplicate some nature. So, oh, it's just great. Okay, so I got a couple questions. Okay, here's the question.
Butter them up first, Mark, and then,
No, I'm not buttering him. I'm just saying facts of what I saw yesterday.
I know.
You know,
Couldn't agree more.
and I appreciate it. And okay, do you record every viewing? Which I learned from yesterday's Q&A. You probably don't. You probably don't even watch it. But have you ever seen one that you really liked and went, shit, I should have recorded that one because that is freaking brilliant?
Yeah, we don't keep them. We don't keep the individual iterations of the film. I started to, and then after a while, I was just like, we keep the software revisions, so I can go back and I can generate a version from last July or something if I want to. But I like the ephemerality of it. I like this idea that if you're in the room or you are in a live stream and you see that version of the film, that you're the only people in the world that will ever see that version. And that is probably one of the reasons that the theatrical was so huge, just because there was that sense of like it's special to go to the movie, to go to a theater to see the movie. You couldn't just watch it on streaming. And if you went, you and that group in the room were going to get something that was kind of just yours. It was a special thing. So yeah, and they're just like, they're like 100 gigs each. And just like after a while, we're just like, I can't, you know, I can't store all this stuff. And then, for the theaters, we, render out a version and then we just make a DCP. The system can render out a ProRes file, or I can do it live. Like the fun thing was doing it, in the room in theaters and making it like felt like a lot more of a live performance. But yeah, well, we don't keep the versions. So It's
Um, One thing that I wanted to ask you or have you share with our D-worders, and that yesterday you made mention, and this was my thought before I watched the film. I'm going, well, he's got a 90-minute film, and all of a sudden, randomly, it's going to switch and stuff. But tell the D-worders how you actually have programmed it to be logical in its cuts.
Yeah. Well, that was the part like the last question too. It was a lot about having great editors to basically make the footage and scenes within the film work in a lot of different ways. Part of it is like um, thinking of it more as there's a rhythm that we sort of, I think, as viewers expect or as filmmakers sort of expect to a film like this about a person who's had a 50 plus year career. There's interviews today, current interviews, there's some archival footage, there's a performance thing, there's a creative, process footage, there's more new interviews, there's a verite thing. So it's basically getting that sort of rhythm to happen. And training the system basically to recognize like how those things should. Yeah, you don't want four our old archival pieces in a row. You want something to break it up and or keep the story flow going. So again, just a lot of work, both editing and programming. But that was always the thing. Like, should it follow these rules that we normally think of as documentary filmmakers? Should it just be more random? Should it be, like if randomness is a structure if the audience is expecting randomness. So you can set up a lot of expectation very early in the film. We kind of have these things where it just like bursts of footage where you don't know what's going on. It's just like it's a little jarring, but it sets you up for the expectation that the next scene could be anything. It's not going to follow, a normal chronological arc or whatever. So as long as you kind of give people that permission to like be like, okay, it's gonna be kind of unexpected, then it's fine to be unexpected.
Great. Thanks, Mark. Gary, just very quickly, I mean, you've probably been asked at this point to make a director's cut of it.
Yeah.
If you were to do that, and I think you're probably resistant to doing that, but if you were, do you know exactly what that would be? I mean, do you have the
Sure, of
scenes in
course, but
mind? Yeah.
it's against the whole law
Yes, I
principle of
know.
the thing because there's been versions to this, but Mark's point, there have been versions where that I thought were amazing. That's totally subjective, I'm the one. Your version of the best version of the Brian Eno film is going to be different from my version or Jessica's version. But it was like I saw a version in a theater and I was just like. That wasn't like that was kind of a little weird. Like I wouldn't have done it that way. And then somebody came up to me and they're like, "That was the best version I ever saw. Oh my God, I can't believe it." So it's all subjective to each viewer.
Yeah.
So part of this thing is about we were making the thing that makes the thing. It's not about each individual output of the film to me. It's about the bigger system. I'm curating all the ingredients that are in there and designing the rules around it. That's what we're making. The things that come out that we would normally kind of obsess over every frame and what this is, that's not what I'm making.
I see another oblique strategy here, not just say no,
There
but
you
just
go.
just let go.
Yeah, no, or make the thing that makes the thing. That
Yeah,
that's it. Make a system that can make the art instead of making the art.
yeah. Thanks. Anne Marie.
Hi, thank you for doing this. My question is, as you're thinking about bootstrapping, distribution, not making the easy streaming sale, all of that, there are so many new platforms, softwares, like, every single day I look and I've got like a new offer from like some random person I've never heard of that has 10,000 films listed on it that I've heard of like two of them. How do you assess or vet who you're working with as a platform if, all of these things have kind of like come out in the last 18 months or so?
Yeah, good question.
Do-
I think that for us again, it's always kind of a means to an end. If it's like, are we bringing our viewers or our audience to a platform to then, so they can watch our movie and engage with it or whatever and pay us money, or is the platform have like this bigger audience that they're driving to it? So. Yes, I hate Amazon. I still want to have the films on Amazon because like if you at the end of the streaming, like is it on net? It's not on Netflix. Is it on Hulu? No, it's on Hulu. Oh, I'm gonna pay $3.99 for it on Amazon then and rent it. Like all roads end up leading to fucking Prime. So like yes, we want to be on Prime and you can get on Prime, through many different aggregators. You can or directly through them. But yeah, there's a lot of new things coming up all the time. And I just kind of like, again, I just weigh it like that. Are we pushing our people to you? Like, are you just doing this to get our kind of audience, or do you have something to offer us that isn't being met? It's for me, it's not about like how we want to be everywhere. I'd rather try to focus it on a few platforms that we like and that we want to support, and then put our efforts into like getting people to there. Jess, do you have thoughts on this?
I think I definitely agree with that. And also, like, sometimes you're thinking about it sort of, it's not really about the platform, it's about the marketing. So, how have you set the film or the project up in order to be found? And that in and of itself is how it doesn't matter where you are if nobody, like you said yourself, you're looking at these platforms and there's a million things you've never heard of. Well, part of that is because they haven't found an audience and cultivated the audience since the production of the film. And so some of it is really like they're kind of, one or the other, it doesn't really matter. If you're, 12 to 35 years old, the first thing you ask is, well, can I see it on YouTube? That's where people want to go. So, and as filmmakers, we've spent all this time being like, well, not YouTube, but like, why not? That's literally where everybody's watching stuff. Everything else, and Gary's point about Amazon, everything else is kind of who cares? Like, how are these people going to find out about your movie? How are you directly connecting with them via social media, in movie theaters, at film festivals? Like, that's how they're going to find you online later. So it's about a presence of the film. It doesn't matter so much about the tool. Some are better than others. Some are going out of business. Some like have a shitty back end. There's a problem with all of them, and there's benefits for all of them.
Um, how are you guys for time, Gary, Jessica? Because
Yeah.
we're pushing right up against
Uh,
Yeah, I have another 15 minutes.
okay.
I,
But we're still going to
I
come.
have
We
a
have
load
three
about
hands.
10.
Okay, we have three hands raised. Nancy, Heidi, Jamani, we cannot take any more questions after them. So, and they will talk at double speed. Nancy?
I'm I'm going to be quick. Hi, thank you for this. It's been a
I
great conversation. Um, it's probably for Jessica. I am soon finishing a short film and actively looking for distribution, and I'm wondering if you ha work with filmmakers who are distributors for distribution as well.
For sure, with short filmmakers
Short film or tall filmmakers making short
or
film.
tall filmmakers. So we don't do so many shorts, primarily because the distribution for shorts is very clear cut. And I would even start by asking yourself, like, what is this is our first question always to all filmmakers is, what is your goal? Is your short film going to win an Academy Award? If it's going to win an Academy Award, then you're going to take one path for your short. If your short is going to connect directly with a very specific audience, then it's going to take another path. If you're trying to make money on it, don't make shorts. that is the sort of like delineating the goals of the film and what your goals are as the filmmaker will help you with distribution. Like I'll give you a very short example. While Mavis was being delivered to HBO, I got really annoyed at the amount of paperwork that we were doing, and I basically went out and shot something over 2 days. And then I didn't kind of care about making money off of it. It was really like an experimental attempt at like remaining a director as amidst sort of all this tower of paperwork. And I gave it for free to a place called Nowness, which was like a very hip, the film was about a tattoo artist, and it was like a very hip online magazine. And it was just about getting the film out there. So my suggestion to you is to really deep dive into what it is you need out of this movie, and then you can determine what the distribution is.
I would just add to that, though, I think there is some potential with short films to make money if there's a certain subject matter and they can tap into an audience or a partnerships with organizations and do virtual screenings. Because the thing about shorts is people, is one of the few films where I think holds people to watch a full-length film and then see a Q&A. But with shorts, with these attention spans now, like a 30-minute, 40-minute short with a good Q&A can actually be really, attractive and possibly make money, but
Well,
it's work,
also, like Doug, like you were saying, if you have 150,000 paid Substack subscribers, yes, then by all means, a short film you can monetize it. Like what was that YouTube guy who made a science fiction film?
Yeah.
Yeah, I can't remember. And everybody's like, "Oh, how did he do it?" And
He
this
had a
is
million and a
breaking the
half
rules. No,
followers.
he had 30 million followers on YouTube. I'm like, all right, first get 30 million followers on YouTube, then you can do anything you want. You can make any film. So yes, I think it's short. I agree. Like
Yeah.
you if you are in that position, yes. I
That
think
is,
if you do not have that, you don't have hundreds of thousands or millions of followers, I think it's harder to make a short film to make
that could have been its own subject for today, was how to build this audience,
yeah. Yeah.
particularly if you're starting
It's our
out.
favorite subject.
Oh man,
Next time,
Next
we'll do
time.
another one.
okay, we'll blow off Heidi and Jamani. Okay.
No, we're Jessica and I are just gonna do it. We're gonna charge for it.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, good. I don't want to cannibalize you monetizing this subject here, since we are going up on YouTube ourselves.
Yeah.
But I will give you a call.
Yeah.
Heidi, you're up.
Thank you.
Hey.
So hi. Yeah, I loved your film. I know.
Oh, thanks.
I'll try to keep that short. It was all amazing. But I'm an editor and I spend a lot of time thinking about juxtaposition of scenes and how to take something from start to finish. That's the whole job, right? So my question was, and you spoke to it a little bit with Eric and Mark. I mean, how did you know when the film was working? And how did you get to a point where you feel
Yeah.
like, okay, and now we can release it because you're not going to have a final version. So
Yeah. It was again a lot of trial and error, a lot of outputting things that didn't work and then dissecting why it didn't work and then trying to fix it. But right up until like a month before Sundance, it was broken. It was not working. The software was still buggy, the editorial fit wasn't working, and we were freaking out. And then I think a lot of projects where you have a lot of time, we mentioned this before, you've spent so much time marinating in the material and the process and the ideas that suddenly the kind of clouds part a little bit and you make the connection at the end. And we did it literally in the couple weeks before Sundance. It was crazy. And then since it is this evolving, generative, living thing, after the 6 versions that we showed at Sundance, we went back and we took 2 months and just tore it apart and rebuilt it again. And then that was generation 2 of the movie. And then we continued to, change the programming and add more footage. I mean, I've added hours and hours of footage to the film since it premiered, which is another whole we can do another panel on or another talk on that. The idea of like the film, if I find something, I just put 30 minutes of footage in this week. And that might show up tonight on the live stream tonight. It might show up tomorrow. It might show up next week. You can just continue to expand the pool of stuff. I could interview Brian tomorrow. So many times we're locking the film, and then something big happens a year later in the subject, and you're like, oh shit, I wish we could have done that or whatever. And this approach sort of enables you to kind of continue to change and update the movie and both the software functionality and the editorial content. So that's what we've continued to do. And these live streams that we're doing this week all have new stuff in them that no one's ever seen.
You have two more screenings
Yeah,
the next 2 days?
tonight or tomorrow. And we can do like
Can you put the link just in the
Yeah,
chat to where you can get the tickets and
yeah, the Chance Operations link is like the best one. Jess, you can put it.
yeah. Folks, if let's not bury the lead here. You have two chances to see this, and it's going to be really. What's so great about these live streams is, they did really, really well in theaters, but like that's a limited amount of people who got to see it. And
Yeah.
the beauty of this is now, if you don't live anywhere near where a theater that was showing was, you can now see it, and you do not want to let this opportunity pass you by.
And in case you do let this opportunity pass you by, there will be other streaming opportunities in the spring. Like we're after a year of trying to get the big streamers to kind of adopt like the technology, they're just still not really ready for something like this. So this idea of a lot of different versions on a lot of different platforms is kind of, I think, where we're landing. So, if Apple will have a version and it'll be different from the Apple in UK, and if you fly Delta, there'll be a Delta version of the film that only exists in these places. So there's still this idea of variety and watching a lot of different versions, but at least we can kind of get it out there. And we do have a pretty cool partnership to be able to do lots of different versions, which we'll be announcing very soon with one of the platforms.
Yeah. Can you either of you put in the chat how to subscribe to your, so that they'll get informed when these live streams are up?
Yeah,
The
or just
yeah,
follow me on Instagram or whatever, or
Okay.
my email list, which is that's so we can put that.
Yeah, it'd be good to
I'll
get
put
on the
that
email
in
list
there too.
so
Yeah,
they'll get
it's
notice.
hustwit.com/mailing, I think is
Yeah.
the
Okay,
thing. So,
final question, Jamani.
Yes, thanks so much, Doug. And thank you, Gary, and thank you, Jessica. I did see your film at Film Forum, and it was quite amazing, and just really loved the idea of the whole AI technology, and I'm actually, and also the fact that you guys are a couple working together. I'm actually working together with my partner. She and I are actually working on a music documentary series with Sam Pollard. And
cool.
so so it's really cool to hear you guys sharing about couplehood and filmhood and life together and all that mixing together. Inspiration for us as we're at a place right now where we have the pitch deck and also the sizzle reel, and we'll be pitching it in the next few weeks, months, so yeah, very, very good inspiration. Question, as moving into your next project, and you were saying that you don't look to go to the streamers for funding or anything, but and then I know the organization that did this film you were mentioning, but as you work towards your next project, where do you get how do you think about in terms of your funding for your next project?
Yeah, I mean, I'm always trying to bootstrap them as much as possible. I've done crowdfunding on a bunch of the projects before in the past. More recently, like Eno was the biggest project that that I've done. It's by exponentially bigger than any of my previous films. So that one, we brought on some private investors and backers to kind of do, a part of the funding. And I'm always like selling posters and t-shirts and everything. It's back to the band model. I'm always kind of just engaging the audience early in the process and then letting them help you get to the finish line. Almost every film I've done, maybe not but almost every other film, I've announced a premiere. I've announced like screenings, like New York special screening with the director and whatever, and it's $25 or whatever it is, and it's like 3 months away from the premiere date or whatever it is, and I'll sell the tickets to a screening, and then I'll use that money to like do the color correct or like finish it. Like I'll advance sell a premiere, like or a couple like special events or something, and then use that money. So I'm just like by any means necessary, just get it out. And as long as you connect with a group of people who are as obsessed as you are to see that film completed, you can figure it out. And otherwise, I just, in this current environment, funding and commissioning editors and all that kind of stuff, I just don't see how you can ever get anything made anymore. And so it's not even really like a plan B. It's just the plan A is to kind of self fund it, or just figure out something creative, a creative way to get the money, or lower your, do it cheaper. I mean, we had a whole thing where we were like, it's got to be $100,000, the whole film, all
That's
in.
it. Everything
what can
in
you make? That's
licensing,
the
everything.
constraint. Like, that's the constraint. Can you make that movie? And that might sound like a lot of money to some people, or feature. Yeah. Can you make a feature for 100 grand? How could you do it? Like, what are the constraints? What's the story that you could film, be with someone for a week, and that's the movie? Like, what could you do? Because we were just trying to think, well, in this, world we're in now, documentary funding and buying and everything, it's just like it's got to be at that level, or at least sometimes it's at that level, and then sometimes you get the bigger thing. But again, just try to think creatively on how to get it. There's no one of the things that I've always hated is like this, like, oh well, that's how it has to be. You can't show the film before it's been sold, that no one's ever going to buy it. All those rules or whatever are out the window. Just get the funding however you can to get the film out there however you can. There's no like right way to do it. Oh, the awards, I won't get an award consideration if I don't. None of that stuff matters to me.
Perfect point to go out on. Advice from documentary filmmakers. Tell me something.
We're giving you hope. Yes, have some hope,
Yes.
everybody. We can still do this stuff. Like we are creative people. That we built those streaming companies with our work, so we can do it for ourselves too.
Yeah.
Such a great point. Thank you, Gary. Thank you, Jessica.
All right.
So
Thanks,
glad you came on.
everyone.
Thank you for
Thank you so
having
much.
us.
Appreciate your staying on extra, and see you guys next week, folks. Save the chat.
Thank
on your
you.
way out.
Okay, take
Thank
care,
you very
guys.
much.
Take care, everyone. Have
bye.
a great weekend.
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.